Everybody's Jake Senzano, the host of Jake and Gino Podcast, here with my co-host, the multifamily mentor, the coach of chef, the father of six, the best-selling author, the G-Daddy, the farmer, and the tan man. Gino, how's it going?
Jake, I'm doing good. I got my nice light blue on. You got a little gray going on over there. You need
to. Honestly, it looks like a rainforest out here right now in eastern Tennessee, and it's 55 degrees. So it's lush and freezing. It's bizarre. It's the springtime in Tennessee, and that's how we're doing it. But Gino, we're making it happen today. Very excited about today's guest. He has spent every working day freezing off in Minnesota. That's not true. Working hard for the last 17 years, helping thousands of leaders around the globe run better businesses and better lives. He's also host of the top-rated podcast, EOS Leader. And Gino, you had a new book there too. What was the book?
Yeah, let me hold it up.
The book, baby.
I mean, listen, Mike's done some amazing work. The book process, run out, buy it. It's something, Jake, that you can even read. It's something where you can digest.
Was there an Audible?
He's got an Audible.
Well, you may be right then. All right, guys. Hey, without further ado, Mike Paton, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jake. Thanks, Gino. Great to be here. And that is a hell of a farmer's tan, Gino.
You like that, huh?
So I do want to get into the EOS stuff a little bit because it's been a while, and just for the folks that may not know the story, may not know you, did you wake up one day and was it, I'm in this business and it's not going well and I just got to figure this stuff out? So you created this entire playbook. Was it brought to you via a profit? How did the whole playbook come to be?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that my colleague, my business partner, my friend Gino Wickman, a different Gino, who probably rocks a pretty solid farmer tan himself, Gino created EOS for about 7 years of experience running his own entrepreneurial company with his father, the largest real estate sales training company in North America at the time. And it was really a system designed to make him and his father and the rest of the leadership team of that organization a more coherent, focused, healthy,
sane,
disciplined, accountable leadership team. And it was built for entrepreneurial companies. At the time, this was 20 plus years ago, at the time, a lot of the business thought leadership available to entrepreneurs was really written for the leaders of big corporations. And the assumption in these corporations is that you're a full-time leader and manager, and you have a team of people working for you that bring you strategic decisions to make and research and so on and so forth. And as you guys know firsthand, when you're running an entrepreneurial company, you're the chief cook, bottle washer, decision maker, leader, manager. You're doing it all. And so he built the system specifically for companies whose owners and leaders are 60-hour day job people and also need to be able to think and work on the business.
Think how impressive that is 20 years ago, then 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Very limited training out there for the small business person. And for that small business person 20, 30, 40 years ago to go from a 10-person headcount to a 200 was even a bigger feat than it is today, because now you got AI, you have all these tools and resources. Even a bigger accomplishment 30, 40 years ago to make that leap because you didn't have the support cast around you or the available training and resources.
You didn't have the capital either. I think the capital available for growth of small business today is at an all-time high. There's just a lot of, powder in the barrel. And so, knowledge, experience, capital, the easy access on the internet to information, like it's easier to find help today than it was back then. And so that's what motivated Gino to create this system. And then, my story is I was running a $7.5 million entrepreneurial company here in the Twin Cities. I had been hired to run it by the founder. She and I were kind of at loggerheads. Our styles were dramatically different. And I was just looking around for a way to get on the same page with her and get aligned and take that company to the next level, and discovered EOS in the search for that answer. And I fell in love with EOS so quickly that I flew off to Detroit and drank some purple Kool-Aid in Gino Wickman's office and decided this was what I was going to spend the
Did
rest
you
of
ever
my
make
life doing.
peace with the prior CEO?
No, we didn't make peace,
It
but
wasn't good enough to make peace with her, but it was good enough to join this
yeah, I mean,
team.
she had a way of doing things. First of all, super smart, super hardworking, brilliant entrepreneur. I have utmost respect for her. But stylistically, we were just oil and water, and we couldn't. She wasn't comfortable with me running the business the way I knew I needed to run it in order to be successful, and I wasn't comfortable adopting her methods, and so terminating our partnership was the right answer for both of us.
Mike, what was the most, a couple of things, what did you love most about EOS? When you saw it, you said you flew out there right away. Like, what hit you and you said, wow, this is the solution?
Yeah, I had run or helped run 4 entrepreneurial companies at that point in my career. And I had also started my career in banking as a private banker. And so I had a lot of business owner entrepreneurs as clients. And what struck me wasn't that EOS would help a dysfunctional company become functional.
Mm-hmm.
What struck me was the 2 better run companies that I was a part of would have benefited. And more importantly, the owners and leaders in those companies would have benefited from what EOS teaches and the simple practical tools it offers in a way that would make the business get better, consistently better results, and the lives of the people who own it and run it better. That's what struck me. Is this is a universal set of tools that will really address all of the common issues facing entrepreneurial companies. I mean, there are certainly wild, crazy, once in a lifetime events that EOS doesn't address, but all of the common, what Gino had done was research and spend tremendous amounts of time with the leadership teams of entrepreneurial companies. And he just noticed a pattern in all of the common problems, obstacles, roadblocks, frustrations that these folks experience.
A lot of blind spots he was identifying.
Yeah, a lot of self-inflicted difficulties,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it, and again, it's all of the strengths of the typical entrepreneur also can become challenges as you're trying to grow and scale an organization. Like, because what got you here isn't going to get you there. So that's what he noticed, and he put together a really clear and simple roadmap for entrepreneurs who want to get more of what they want from their businesses.
Now, Mike, this question may take you 45 minutes to answer because it's a really challenging question. So this is the preface. Now, this is the bane of our existence, I think, as entrepreneurs. How do you get buy-in from your team? I've got this great system. Mike is going to save us hundreds of hours and make us scale. But I know it. Jake knows it. How do you get the team to get bought into the system? That's something that we faced in certain instances. And I would say it's our fault, maybe, of not communicating the greatness of what we're trying to usher in.
Well, first of all, I hate the term buy-in because it implies that there's some amount of money you can pay people on your team to pretend that they're in agreement with you.
Mike, I'm Italian. I'm in the cash world. I used to be in the cash world, so that term comes to me easily. So
I hear you. What we call it is in an EOS company is vision shared by all. Okay, and vision shared by all is the way we describe what 100% strong in the vision component in the EOS model looks like. And basically what we say is, if you own or you're the senior decision maker at this company and you see a future that you believe is possible, and you can surround yourselves with a team of people who also believe that vision and the plan you need to execute is possible, then your job as an owner or a leader of an entrepreneurial company is just repeat that vision over and over and over again until everybody on your leadership team also sees it, also wants it, and is ready to grab a paddle and paddle their kayak to the same point on the far shore of the lake that you believe this company can go. And sometimes you get there by convincing people on your team that the company can achieve more than they think is possible. But sometimes you get there by exiting that person who never is going to want what you want and doesn't want to be part of a company with this particular vision or any vision at all, and they don't want to be accountable for executing and pushing themselves beyond their own boundaries, and replacing that person with somebody who does want what you want. That's what we mean by vision shared by all. Trying to convince everybody on your team to run the company the way you want to run it and push themselves beyond their own boundaries is not going to be a successful strategy 100% of the time.
I got to jump in here for a second because Gino and I had a huddle this morning, and he was asking about one of the managers that recently left. And the cool thing about the scenario was on a personal level, real good rapport, love this person. Ultimately, though, there was a just conflict of interests, if you will, to the point that you were just saying. We weren't rowing in the same directions. There was expectations that were not being carried out. The organization's going in this direction. That person maybe didn't believe in it, but was rejecting some things, and it would come up during the weekly meetings and whatnot. And it just liked each other, had all the ability, extremely intelligent, just was never going to commit to the direction. And the cool thing was self-selected the way out, which and didn't have to go to, hey, and so it sounds awkward, but we've been, I don't know, Gino, we've been in business since 2013 together or whatever. It does get better, folks, if you commit to the plans and follow the EOS or whatever. You get to a point where this person said, hey, this isn't for me. Where before we might have had to fire the person and get a little weird, right? Which is great. Now, it doesn't always work that way, but
well, and that's the magic of vision shared by all is your job is just repeat the rules you play by every day, and the people who want to achieve the vision and follow the rules are going to stay and help you, and the people who don't are going to leave. And it's not calling those people bad people or bad leaders or managers. It's just like, here's what we're about. You struggle with some of this stuff, which is fine. Why don't you go find a company where you're going to be a better cultural fit, or what they're trying to accomplish is more in line with your own values or your own priorities. There's nothing wrong with that. And life's just too short not to subscribe.
It was
to
like a level of accountability that wasn't being met, and the person had the ability and all the talent in the world, just chose not to do it.
And oftentimes you love them. They're fun to be around. They have a lot on the ball. It's just, the puzzle pieces don't fit. And no harm, no foul. That's a win-win exit. My business coach, Dan Sullivan, calls it addition by subtraction, right? Addition by subtraction.
Mike, in the business world nowadays, especially with Instagram and social media, there's a lot of talk of scaling and getting bigger and focusing just on revenue. Is it always wise to grow? I mean, like Jake and I, we're of the mindset of where we're focusing more on our profitability, profit per unit. We don't want to outgrow our infrastructure. Do you see some harm in what social media is doing and just telling people to grow and not to grow thoughtfully? And they should have a system like yours in place to do that. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what scaling looks like to you.
I actually think this phenomenon predates social media in that, when I was a young pup out of college in banking, the cover of the business publications in Columbus, Ohio, always featured the people whose businesses were growing fastest. And often those companies were struggling the most to generate a profit.
Isn't there a magazine called Fast Company or something?
Yeah. And for the record, there are lots of rapidly growing companies that generate consistently acceptable, if not high profits. And so the two are not mutually exclusive subsets, but scalable growth requires a focus on infrastructure development and profit, and it's possible. And so, do I wish that social media didn't glamorize the rapidly growing companies that, later are going to declare bankruptcy because they didn't build infrastructure? Yes, but that's never going to happen. And so, I'm focusing my time and attention on the entrepreneurs who want to grow but they want to grow internally and externally visibly,
Mm-hmm.
not just externally, if that makes sense.
I just want to say, I'm glad you corrected me. I should have said social media is adding fuel to the fire, because
I think that's right. Yeah.
that's what I meant, because you're 100% right, because we've always been enamored by people. And the reason why this came to me is I read the book Profit First by Mike Paton this past weekend. I'm trying to teach my children that most companies are focusing on the longer term. And even in our multifamily space, they're looking to buy this asset, and in 2 years, they're looking to flip out and make these excess profits, which is not a bad model. But at the same time, there's no thought to operating these multifamily properties and to create consistent cash flow and to try to pay yourself. And I think you can have a blend of both, but I think social media has really focused on, hey, hit that, get that home run. But for you to be able to hit that home run, you still need Mike, EOS, and Gino to help you build those systems. And I think that over the last couple of years has not been in our multifamily space. I'm sorry, Jake, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you weren't. I was just going to say that a lot of people throw around 20% year over year top line revenue growth. And I've been tracking that internally for the last 3 years. And I put out a 10-year plan to see if we could consistently hit it. And we've been on pace for the last 3 years. I think we have a shot next year. But when you start to grow like that, years 5, 6, it's going to be very freaking hard to hit these numbers. And in our business, you grow. Yes, there's revenue growth internally, but you grow by acquiring new businesses. So it also gets extremely expensive,
capital intensive.
To keep going out and buying those. So that's what I'm saying. Like years 6, 7, I'm like, if we hit these, it's gonna be maybe it happens. Maybe this miracle will come. But holy shit, it's gonna be hard.
Well, and nirvana for an entrepreneur is your company is satisfying its clients.
Yes. Yep.
A great place to work for your employees, and dropping enough profit to the bottom line that you have your own capital to fuel future growth, so that you don't need to go out into the market and get partners or get
and that's what we do too. We actually don't.
That's the challenge with us.
Yeah, we're sort of the outlier in the sense that we only use our internal capital. We don't, because most of the people in our space do syndications and get investors, and we don't do that. So yes, we could go out and raise money to do it, but we did that in the past and just didn't like it as much. And so we started off with our own capital. We did a few syndications and pivoted back. So now we're looking at it going, damn, how are we going to hit these numbers, right? And if we do, we do. If we don't, great. It doesn't, it's not going to change anything. But yeah,
there's a pretty simple math problem that's kind of fun. And if you think about the capital required, the number of syndication partners required, and the people required to run a company that generates, let's just say, 100 million in revenue, but drops 5% to the bottom line. Okay. That company's generating $5 million in net profit. Well, would you rather run that company or a $20 million company dropping 20% to the bottom line? Right. Now you're getting $4 million in net, right? And so anyway, if you
but we've lived through that. Yeah.
If you start doing the math on all of that stuff, and listen, I'm not against investors, and
we're not either. We just choose not to do it. Yeah.
I love businesses that have very aggressive visions and go out and do whatever it takes in the capital markets and with people and partners and everything else to grow exponentially. That's kind of fun, but it's a totally different feel. And so, EOS works whether you want to focus on exponential growth or you want to focus on steady, sustainable growth. What we're going to bring to the table as professional EOS implementers is sustainability. We want the organism that is your business to be healthy at every stage of growth, because if your organism is healthy, you and your family are going to be healthy. And that's really important to us.
Before I get into the book process, I need to make a comment on what you're both saying. I've just recently going to get certified as a certified money coach. And I think people need to understand their own personal DNA. I love what you're saying, Mike. grow if you want to grow, but understand why you're growing. Understand why you want to hit 20% top line. And I'd mentioned this to Jake last week. We're focusing on profit per unit. That's what our metric is. So whether we get 20% top line, if our units are profitable and we can make money on the profitability of our units, that's what our DNA is. That's what we want to focus on. So as you're building your company, why do you want to get to $100 million? What's the understanding of it? And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't listen to the internet. Don't listen to Fast Company. Listen to Jake and to Gino, your own DNA, and then understand that, because I love that. I mean, we're so focused on top line growth. I heard revenue is vanity, profit margin is sanity, and cash is king. I mean, one of our mentors taught us that. And I'm like, that makes so much sense to me. And I hope as people are listening to this, there's no one size fits all when growing a company. There's reasons for growing the company. But I think if you use your principles and your ideals that you laid out in EOS, it'll make it a lot easier to get to where you want to go ultimately.
Yeah. It also, in today's day and age, it also negates the potential danger associated with events outside your control.
Mm-hmm.
We're operating our businesses in a period of very high risk and uncertainty right now.
Yep.
And the fewer variables you have in the capital markets, debt, et cetera, the less dangerous those things outside your control are.
Mm-hmm. Process. What made you write the book? Because this is not an AI book. You can't just sit there and write AI, because this is your voice. Your voice is in here. There's a lot of detail in there. What made you go through the painful process of writing it?
So a fit of rage is the way I would, and introspection about my own bias against process. Okay. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a visionary. And one of the things I noticed, for your listeners that know EOS well, you'll know that process is one of the 6 key components in the EOS model. It's the vision component, the people component, data component, issues, process, and traction. And what I found, and my fellow professional EOS implementers in the implementer community found pretty consistently, is that all of our clients could legitimately say they were 80% strong in the 5 of the 6 components, but the component they struggled with most was process. And so I spent a lot of time trying to figure out why that was.
Can you define process for folks?
Yeah, process is figuring out the handful of things you and your company need to do consistently well every day in order to achieve the results you want to achieve. And taking those handful of truly core processes and figuring out a simple, clear way of teaching everybody in your company to do it your company's way. And so these are things like the HR process or people process, the marketing process, the sales process, 2 or 3 operating processes, and an accounting process. It's a pretty short list for most of my clients. But if you can get checklists built or workflows built, or have a video showing a successful person doing something that's really important in your business, so that all your people can do what I do when I'm doing handiwork around the house, go to YouTube or whatever video platform you use and watch somebody who knows what they're doing do something important, and then I can just replicate those steps, you are going to be able to grow and scale a business significantly faster than a company without any process, documentation, or video evidence describing how to do it well. That's what the process component is.
And even if you don't grow the business, you're still doing things and letting other people do things that you may not want to do. That's the important thing, I think, that gets lost in that process as well, don't you think?
Well, that's right. And what a lot of entrepreneurs forget is that we are all sort of naturally process oriented. Like most entrepreneurs sort of instinctively repeat things that work consistently and quit doing things right away that don't work consistently. That's the definition of a great entrepreneur. So that sort of without thinking about it, you're just following a set of proven steps to do the things your business needs to do. And so then when 5 years later, you're trying to grow and scale a business through a layer or 2 of leadership and management, the idea that everybody in the organization needs a guidebook in order to do things really well sort of runs foreign to your belief because you didn't have a guidebook. You just figured it out along the way. And so that was sort of the aha for me in trying to figure out why the process component was such a struggle for most of my clients. And for me, I was disavowing the need for process myself as an implementer because I was effective figuring things out on my own. And I just expected everybody else to do that. But man, it's hard to do when you're growing and scaling a business.
Gino, can I speak to this for a second?
Yeah, let me say one thing real quick. I have to give Jake a lot of credit on this because I was a little more I was more averse to this because I had a business for over 20 years before I met Jake. So I was I'm a guy. So when we had our fourth or fifth deal, like I'm gonna do this. We have like 300 units. Jake's like, we need to have some systems. I'm like, system? What's a system? And he really pushed me and really got me out of my comfort zone. And then we started doing some EOS training. Then we started doing some scaling up training. And I was like, wow, this really helps a lot. And it took me a little bit of time to get the buy-in. So I have to give him a lot of credit for that. Sorry, Jake, go ahead.
Oh, no, but like it really dovetails into what you're saying because you said 80% of entrepreneurs struggle with this. Prior to that, though, I was really struggling with it. And I was the person that you just identified. You said 80% of your folks struggle with this. We were there. We were definitely the I'm a people, but I had an even bigger bias because I came from corporate America and it was during the healthcare reform situation. So it was heavy process and literally like browbeating. This is the way you do it. And to the point where I'm very entrepreneurial. Like you said, I like to figure it out and go. So I was so pissed and rejecting this like sort of like corporate mentality. Then when we got into our own business, I was like, no, we're going to do it. We know how to do it. Let's run. And then, but then people behind you don't. And so you have to teach them that. So, but like, even I was maybe a little bit earlier than Gino to saying, hey, we need to, get some help here. But we struggled terribly, to Gino's point. Cause I was like, fuck this shit. We ain't doing it. Right. Like I'm not doing this corporate, BS. And that was even harder because I was rejecting the prior experience.
Yeah, and the first part of the book is all about debunking those myths.
Yeah.
It's not necessary as one of the myths. Like we want to run an entrepreneurial. What the thesis of the book is: process creates freedom. Okay, and most entrepreneurs start companies because they want to be free, and oftentimes there's a rejection of that corporate methodology around process, which is what we call the 700-page SOP manual. We're going to document 100% of the steps in 100% of our processes to get 100% compliance. And so the entrepreneur feels like, well, geez, I don't want a bunch of...
Say that to me 10 years ago, I'm throwing up in my mouth. Right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I don't want a bunch of mindless robots walking around my organization just doing what they're told. I want a bunch of smart, innovative, creative people making up their own minds and helping me achieve what I want to achieve. And so what we teach in the book is a 20-80 approach to documenting and simplifying your handful of core processes and getting what Izzy Sharp, who founded the Four Seasons Hotel and Resort Company, used to call we systemize the predictable to humanize the exceptional. And what that requires, it requires some thinking about what you want done the right and best way every time and what you're comfortable letting people use their unique gifts to figure out. And so, for example, when you check into a Four Seasons, the people at the front desk follow a very simple formula of efficiently and personally greeting a guest and getting all the particulars worked out. But the people at the front desk are also encouraged to use their own guile and wit and memories and collaborative spirit to make friends with the guests and take a genuine interest in. And that's not systemized at all. That's up to the unique individual. And so that's kind of the flavor of what we teach in the book. It's an entrepreneurial approach to documenting and simplifying core processes.
Before we get to the short answers, you have the FBA checklist followed by all. It's train, measure, manage, and update. You want to hit those real quick for everybody just to get an idea of how to start the process?
So this is another thing that breaks process initiatives in a lot of companies, corporate and entrepreneurial. And if you work really hard to document it, but you put it in a 700-page SOP manual and put it in everybody's bookshelves and credenzas, ain't nobody going to look at it. You and I both know that, right? We're running at the speed of light in an entrepreneurial company. We don't have time to look at the manual, okay? And so you've got to conduct enough training that people understand in your organization, hey, this is the way we do things around here, okay? Number two, if you conduct training and expect that behavior will change on training alone, you are sorely mistaken. You've got to reinforce that training with ongoing training and, better yet, measurement. Okay, if you get evidence every week that people are or are not following the process or are not getting the desired result, knowing when that's not happening allows you to circle back to the people who aren't doing it right and aren't getting the desired result and reinforce the training they've gotten to make it stick. And then the last thing is, if it's okay for people who don't do it the company way, and you're not leading and managing to drive accountability for following the process, the best people will give a message to everybody else in the organization that they're immune to the rules and they can do it their own way. So it's okay for me to do it my own way. And so you got to lead, manage, and drive accountability. And then the last thing is, especially when you're running an entrepreneurial company, you got to be willing to update that process regularly. We recommend once a year, just take it out, look for ways to simplify, automate things, stay current in the way your market works, et cetera, because otherwise it's going to die on the vine and become antiquated pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Dying on the vine. All right, gang, let's take a quick time out here from our sponsor.
This episode of the Jake and Gino Podcast is brought to you by Wheelbarrow Profits, the premier multifamily education community. Wheelbarrow Profits proof is in their results. Their members have closed over 86,000 units. That's over $5 billion in student deal volume. Are you serious about taking your real estate game to the next level? Do you have the confidence to take action? Schedule a call with the Wheelbarrow Profits team today and supercharge your real estate knowledge. Build lasting relationships through unparalleled networking opportunities. Obtain lasting knowledge on how to buy multifamily real estate with intensive training. Gain hands-on experience through their live events with like-minded individuals and industry professionals, all while experiencing the personal touch and family atmosphere that set them apart. Visit wheelbarrowprofits.com for more information.
All right, we are back. You said something earlier, and that it caught my interest. You were discussing your time as a banker, and you had all these different clients. Did you ever go back to the banking clients that you had and recommend EOS? Because I can only imagine from speaking with the bankers that we work with now and some of the experiences they don't share names, they just tell stories, okay? But there's folks that need help out there, and you had direct access to those people. Did you ever use that as a...
Early on, I did connect with some of my banking clients, but remember, I live in Minneapolis now, and I was in Columbus, Ohio. But there are numerous of my ex-clients running on EOS now through their work with other implementers in Columbus. Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of entrepreneurial clients as friends as clients, and if you're running an entrepreneurial company, EOS is definitely something to look into.
I think that's the way you grow the company. You get out there with the bankers and say, which clients do you have that are bouncing checks? Give them my number, right?
Well, ironically, when I started as a EOS implementer, I would have told you that community banks maybe aren't the best potential client for an EOS implementer because, it's a highly regulated industry. They're, steeped in a lot of data already, et cetera, et cetera. I could have given you a million reasons why.
The bank themselves is a customer.
A great fit. I now have a dozen bank clients under my belt, 6 or 7 of which are still active with me today.
Oh, I believe it.
So it's a great niche for us. And for all EOS implementers, our clients are always the best sources of referrals. So I've proven your concept, Jake.
Well, I wasn't even referring to the banks. I was referring to the bank's customers. That if you're in business banking, you're seeing the folks that are going up and doing well, and then you're seeing the folks that are floundering. So that's what I was saying. That if you went to the community bankers and said, "Give me the list of your top 5 people that are having some troubles right now, we can help them out." That is the meat right
All
there
right,
for
hold on. I got to
EOS.
write that down, Jake. Just a minute.
Dude, I'm telling you. I'm telling you though, you got it. You get it with those folks.
No,
And
my bank clients are great referral sources for me, and I'm grateful for them every day. So totally get it.
I bet. Any other books or anything that you've read over the last year or two that you want to recommend to the folks?
I'm a big fan of James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. He was the keynote speaker at our EOS conference a couple months ago. It sort of galvanizes on a personal level what we're talking about with process. And process is about generating and perpetuating habits that get great results. So there's solid alignment there. The first book I wrote with Gino, Get a Grip, is a business fable telling a story of an entrepreneurial company discovering and beginning to run on EOS. And so for your listeners that are curious about what this journey looks like, that's a great book. And of course, the book that started it all was Gino's Traction. And I send a lot of those to a lot of people. So always recommend that one.
So we're big proponents. We've done EOS training. We're big followers of the book and all the teachings. If we have an entrepreneur out there that's listening right now, and this is resonating with them, what would you say the top 3 identifiers are that they need your guys' help?
Yeah, so that you're feeling stuck, right? That and it's a top 1 identifier, that when you feel stuck and frustrated, when your business has grown and you've hit a ceiling, and you've tried to in the past, most entrepreneurs who come to me have successfully navigated through a number of ceilings on their own, but this one feels different. That's the top identifier. Man, no matter what I try, I'm either not getting my company unstuck or I'm making it worse. When you're feeling that way, do some research into EOS. Look into your market. EOS Worldwide's website has a list of implementers by geography. And so you can do a quick little search. Find a local EOS implementer to tell you and your leadership team a little bit more about how EOS works. And if it feels like a great fit, move forward. If it doesn't, find a system that's going to help you cure the ills that befall your business that you can't figure out yourself. We don't believe EOS is for every business, but we do believe every business needs an operating system, a way of running itself so that the owners and leaders can elevate into their roles as it grows and scales.
The thing that's so upsetting about it is that you really need to immerse yourself into it and get trained on it, because we've been there. We've tried to just read and like you stick your toe in, and it sort of will help, but you really need to immerse yourself into it. And then once it clicks, you want to kick yourself in the ass because it feels like common sense, but you have these blinders that for whatever reason you can't push through. And then when you break on through to the other side, I'm just singing like rock and roll now. You feel kind of silly about it, but it takes that experience to get there, and then it becomes second nature, like riding a bike. It's the most bizarre thing that I can only speak from experience like that. It's just weird.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the insight, Jake, because that was sort of my reaction when I read Traction. Like, these are all familiar concepts to me, but can I look in the mirror and say that I'm doing it consistently? And the answer is no. And what EOS does is bring consistency and discipline to some basic common sense principles that'll help you break through whatever ceiling your business is facing. And that's what I fell in love with almost 18 years ago now. And what I hope your listeners are motivated to go research, because it's going to feel familiar and you're going to feel like we're kind of doing these things. But as we say in the book Process, kind of will kill you. It's almost worse than not doing it at all, because it's like a placebo. Oh, yeah, we kind of got our processes documented and followed by all. Well, that means you don't.
Yeah,
But
that's
you're
exactly
you're
right.
making yourself feel better by saying you're kind of there. And so I just want your listeners to go all the way there. Get it done. Create a machine that most of the time gets consistently great results. And when it doesn't, that's when you and the leadership team dig in and figure it out and get creative and improve the quality of the business you're running.
The best analogy that I can give is to diet. If you're not tracking your calories and you're attempting to lose weight, I guarantee you the minute you start tracking your calories, you're 500 calories more than you realize. Because that little cookie that you took out that has the 200 calories and the little, well, it was the kid's birthday bullshit that you did, so I had to do it. When you actually start looking at it like you should be with any good system, you will realize your flaws. And that's where the difference is made. 100%.
A great analogy, and I'm really offended that you chose that one to talk to me about, Jake. But
well, dude, I mean, you said you wanted to take your shirt off before and run around the city, and I said, Brosif, the only way to do it is to start doing those curls and lay off the cookies. All right, you can be disciplined at work. You better do it in your home life as well.
Cookies doesn't work.
It does if you want. It does if you want a tire around your waist.
All right, thank you. I'm enriched.
Take that. All right, Gino, take us home.
So, Jake, if you'd give me a minute to tell Mike's story through the Jake and Gino progression of where we started to where we are today, just give me 1 minute, Jake. Because in 2011, we meet. I'm a guy at the restaurant, totally burned out. I want something new. You're the pharmaceutical rep driving around going, this job sucks.
They hate me. Why do they hate me so much?
18 months to find a deal. We think we hit pay dirt. This is amazing. We're going to make cash flow. Oh my God, 3 months later, we've got another deal. We've got a resident manager here and a resident manager there. We're doing it all. And then 6 months later, we close on 136 units. We have to start hiring people full time now. Oh my, this is great. But at the same time, more revenue. We're starting to learn things, but we have to start figuring out all these different processes. It takes us a little bit longer. The I'm a guys, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I
was riding a lawnmower at one point, Mike, just so you know.
Exactly. And then Ima finally said, you know what? This EOS thing is amazing. And we start implementing it. The cadence of accountability, the weekly huddles, the daily calls, the L10s, the rocks, all of a sudden the quarterly priorities. We start figuring it out and we take it one step at a time. And for anybody listening to this, you're an entrepreneur. Your first or second deal that you've done, the fifth or sixth deal, you need to understand that you need to grow into a different kind of person. That first or second deal that Jake and I did, we were different kinds of people. We had to make it happen. We had to bootstrap, learn to do everything. But if you want to scale and continue to grow your organization, you're going to need consistency and discipline, which is what Mike, his company, his book process, EOS, will allow you to do. So it all comes down to you. There's nothing wrong with staying with 50 or 60 units and doing it all yourself if that's what you love, if that's what your passion. But if you're looking to grow, if you're looking to create more impact, if you're looking to more, have more doors under management, have more residents, have more employees, if you're looking for that, then go check out Mike, check out EOS, check out the book process, and don't be like Jake and Gino and the
It can go a lot faster, right?
A cautionary tale.
That's right. Hey, Mike, we missed it. What's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the EOSworldwide.com website has a profile of every professional EOS implementer, including me, on it. I would go there. That's a great place to learn more about EOS, connect with me or somebody local to your market. That's where I'd go first.
Excellent. All right, gang. As always, we believe in buying deals for the long term. Think in decades. I'm Jake. He is the G Daddy, and we got the EOS implementer in the house today as well, Mike. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it, guys.